So, good morning to you all, to those who are here with us on the Zoom screen, but especially for those who are following us on YouTube on this final conference of the KINDER project. Finally, 30 months after starting, we get to an end that, in our opinion, is a beginning, because as we were discussing 2 days ago, when a project ends, we're in the right place to begin and put it in place and scale it up. So first of all, I'd like to start by thanking all the invisible work that a project like this has. Because we're the visible faces, but behind us, we have several people who supported us during these 13 projects. And since the Center for Social Studies here in Portugal is the leading institution, I'd like to thank you to our project manager, Irina Castro, for all her patience. I would like to thank also our program officer, Silvia Maiota, who understood all the changes and all the crazy ideas that we had during the KINDER project. Also to Danielle Sansão, our web designer, who made the beautiful website and all the layouts to our products and our manuals. Also, thank you to the International Step by Step Association, here represented by Aisha, our consultants, and to Equimundo, our partners, especially the Global Boyhood Initiative program. I'd like to thank the national representatives that will be here today in person or sent videos, but also our European representatives who sent their videos of support to our project. We know that this is not at all the end of this project. We know that this is just the beginning, and now the project goes to the world, because of course it's open to all. Let me go through the program of the conference today, just to update you. So we'll have in 3 minutes the presentation of the national manuals from Portugal, from Spain, and from Croatia. Then we'll show you and share with you the animation movie that we have, that is also part of our European campaign called Be Kinder, with comments from Patricia Ferreira, also here. And then we'll go through the European manual that is being launched today and is online today for the first time. So after that, we'll have the comments from the national government and specialists, and after that, the comments from the partners and European representatives. So after that, we'll have some time for discussion and debate. And if those who are following us on YouTube have questions, they can send us, and we'll try to answer most of them. I'll ask Tiago, who's giving us some technical support besides presenting the national manual, to start sharing our presentation. Thank you, Tiago. So the KINDER project has as title, Tackling Gender Stereotypes in Education and Early Childhood, Building a Gender Responsive Pedagogy in Children's Education. We understood that because for several years, we worked with youth starting at the age of 12 or 10, and we know it's too late to start at that age. So this means that during the pandemics, we together designed the application of the KINDER project, next please, to work with education professionals starting at the age of 3. So the project started on the 1st of January 2021, and it ends by the end of this month. It is financed by the Justice Program, Just Rights, Equality and Citizenship Program, and aims to tackle the urgency of developing an effective and innovative program and training curricula for professionals working with children at preschool age from 3 to 6, and from the first cycles of basic compulsory educations from 7 to 12. And this is something that we have in common among the 3 countries. We carried out surveys with families and education professionals. Altogether, we carried 1,715 surveys, and we reached 1,525 people. This means that we trained this amount of education professionals and also students who will become basic education teachers and educators. So welcome all. I'll pass it to Tiago to start the presentation of the National Portuguese Manual.
Hello, nice to see you all, and thank you for your presence here. Not only our partners that are just a family to us, because we passed a lot of time with each other, not only by presence but by emails, by Zoom, and I'm gonna miss you. I'm not going to miss you because we had other projects together, but in here in Kinder project, I'm gonna miss you. Next, please. Our Portuguese Kinder Toolkit, it's a manual that has to target persons of 3, 1 to educators, to families, to teachers, kindergarten teachers, and we divide it into age range from 3 to 6 and to 7 to 12 years old. And we also have in that manual not only the academic and the theoretical approach of the Kinder project, but also very practical workshops and tools to work with the children of this 2 age range. Like we have conversation starters, we have the animation, we have all the sessions that the teachers and educators can use with the children, and we also have tools and a glossary that I'm going to present in the next. Well, this was a teamwork, a Portuguese teamwork of the Kinder Portuguese team, and also with experts that we invited to write the chapters, so that we can have a large range approach in our manual and to cover all the areas that we think it's the main aspect of our target approach. Next, please. From the first module, we started by the gender socialization in childhood from the beginning. And it's a chapter wrote by Tatiana and me, and we have tips for activities, and we started from the beginning, as I said, with what is gender socialization in focusing on childhood. Next, please. The second one, also with Tatiana and me, we began to not only address a theoretical approach about stereotypes and masculinities, but also have some tips with tools and workshops that we and families and the educators can use with children. Next, please. The third, we invited an expert in identities and sexualities. Well, we approach and welcoming and celebrating also the diversity at school. We approach all the gender identities, all the gender expression, but also sexual orientation and other kinds of diversities. Next, please. Then we have in the module 4, we invited a specialist, Paulo Cardoso, in these subjects, and we have an anti-racist, anti-xenophobic education approach. That is our recognition of the importance of recognizing and acknowledge differences, racial differences, country differences, but social differences also. Next, we have a module of non-violent education, and Milena do Carmo, it's also our consultant, explain what are the advantages of a non-violent education for the kids, for the parents, for the families, and also for the society. Next, please. The other one, it was written by a sexologist, Vania Belize, who is an expert in consent, emotions, and sexual consent. And she was also a consultant and gave workshops in KINDER. And we thought it was very important for the educators, teachers, and families to talk with children about consent, about their bodies, about their emotions. And we explained everything, Vania explained everything in this module. Next, please. Another important, and it has more importance in our times in society and in our times, is how to address the bullying and the cyberbullying. This is a pandemic in our society for our children, and we, in this chapter, we approach how we can address the bullying and cyberbullying, and how can we teach non-violence and non-cyber violence for children and adolescents. Next one. Then the 8th module is the relationship between families and school. How can we address the kind of relation that families have to have with schools, but in the other direction also, how schools can relate with families. Next one, it's we in all our projects, and you are going to see that in a short time. We have also always campaign creation. We have also a strong campaign team in our projects, and how to mobilize not even our community, but also the society. Next, please. So the next chapter is a long road ahead. It's a glance by with targeting, promoting gender equality in preschool and in the first and second cycles of basic education. And this chapter is very important because it gives us a window of where we can look it up about how is the preschool, the first and second cycles of basic education in Portugal. And it was written by our consultant, Sofia Gonçalves, which is here with us, and I welcome, and the former Secretary of State of Equality, Rosa Monteiro. And I think I'm done. It was a very nice, yes, I'm not done, please, next. I promise I will talk about the glossary. We have 2 glossaries here. A more formal one, it's the KINDER glossary that you can see it in the right. That is the words that commonly we use in our projects, in our society, about all the thematic of our gender equality thematic. But we have also this one in the left, that is the angel sex, that is a glossary made by a master's student, and is her thesis, and it's a more broad, a more larger spectrum glossary with more street slang, with more like youth words that can bring the youth to us and to our project. And it's a very beautiful, with lots of beautiful illustrations, and gave us the two perspectives, one more academic and one more being academic also, but one more from the society and from the youngsters, their words and their expressions in this thematic. Now I'm finishing. Thank you very much. Please keep up with us, and good work for everybody here. The next one is Madalena Bianchi with the Spanish manual mapping resources, kinder materials from the Spanish-speaking education professionals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tiago. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for your presentation. As Tiago said, I will now briefly present the educational product that we created with the Fundación CEPAIM team here in Spain, that we hope will be useful for many Spanish teachers. I don't know if we can. I'll wait for the presentation to appear because we don't see the presentation. Meanwhile, I'll explain a little bit that we decided to propose a website that you can find typing materialescoeducativos.cepaim.org, that can be translated as gender responsive materials, but that we also call Kinder's Island, a little archipelago of knowledge. And later on, I will explain why. Next, please. The idea of the website was born in order to contribute to the systematization and selection of educative guides and manuals within the extensive production here in Spain. And we decided to apply some criteria that responded to the mission of the project, but also to the needs and challenges that the Spanish context present. For us, it was very important to present a meaningful job, a meaningful proposal for the Spanish context. I will briefly present you the challenges in order to better explain the choices and the materials that we can find in the web. So as you probably know, the Spanish administration grants a large autonomy to regional and local government, and this implies that we can find regional differences, meaningful regional differences in the application and interest toward egalitarian and diverse education in schools. So we had to take this into consideration, that the commitment toward equality and diversity in schools can be really different depending on the region and the context. Moreover, we also need to take in consideration that it already exists a variety of manuals and guides that are produced in the Spanish context, but that they reflect different perspectives. And our proposal was to incorporate and promote manuals and materials that has an intersectional perspective that we thought it was really interesting to promote from the Kinder project in the Spanish context, in order to implement pedagogies that take in consideration education the variety of diversity already existing in the classroom in order to promote transformative pedagogies. So in Spain, next please. In Spain, the intersectional perspective is kind of new in the field of education, and we wanted to support and expand that, but at the same time offering tools that were practical for the teacher in order to work in class, but also capable of raising awareness, since this is a kind of a new point of view that is being incorporated recently in the field of education. Engaging the teacher, attract the teacher in a context where a variety of guides and materials already exist, and involving them as a learning agent also in a continuous training, it was a priority for us in Spain. And next, please. So our proposal is this website. You can see that is a kind of archipelago, a kind of island that symbolize, if we want, learning as a travel, but also it symbolizes that a variety of elements are needed so that life can happen, basically, no? In its different dimensions. So we have some more transcendental or more basic to survival elements like water, clean water, for example, but also some more worldly, if we want, elements like a Luna Park, no? So it was in order to create this idea that everything is needed. And if I can, I will share Tiago, I need to share briefly let's see if I can share, so I can give you a small tour while I continue to present. So this is the web, this is a little message of a welcoming message, and then as you can see, every element in this map represents a topic. Luna Park of sexual education, the water source of feminist pedagogy, LGBTQ plus valley, the woods of ecologism and sustainability. So we proposed a content of 9 topics that are sexual education, intersectionality, feminist perspective in pedagogy, sustainability, feminist use of spaces in the schools, anti-racism, corporal diversity, and prevention of violence. In order to present many resources for the variety of context in Spain, and also to present a perspective that is intersectional. So in order to pass the message that all of these topics are relevant in an education, in a transformative education. So when you click, you can see that every topic is introduced by a text written by an expert. This in order to raise awareness toward the topics that are you can find in here. Then we selected some guides and manuals already existed that has a focus, a point of view that we thought was relevant. And every topic is reviewed, is described, and there is an evaluation and a link to the guide. So it is available from the web. The manuals that we propose are we can find it online and download it for free. So it was also really important. So we can find this review, and then we can find an exercise that is dedicated to the teacher that you can read online or you can download. A self-reflective exercise in order to promote self-reflection, in order to promote engagement, and in order to promote continuous training for teachers. And then finally, in every topic, you could find extra materials. These are materials that you can use in class or that you can use for your personal development as a professional and as a person. Some of them are available online, some of them unfortunately not, but they are reviewed, and it's like kind of our tips or our plus in order to give some impulse and some suggestion to facilitate this work in the classroom. Moreover, we can also find what we call the Cine alla Fresca, an open air cinema in this island, where we can find but we can find in here some videos on the topic proposed in order to present a variety of materials, so not only for reading. And in here we can find the connection to the European web of the project in order to impulse a more deep knowledge of the project, a more complete knowledge of what we did. Okay, thanks. Next, and I will finish. So I already explained the topics and what we can find over there. We decided to play with graphic design and imaginary also for attractiveness of the materials that is proposed. And next, please. The only thing left to say is that we are now presenting the web at local and regional level, counting on the network that we created through the different phases of the project, especially Madrid, Valencia, and Andalusia. And that we are happy to announce that the website will also be presented in the Congress of Gender Equality in Education in October 2023 in Granada. So, because also getting to spread, let's say, this information and the existence of the materials that we create, we think it is really important. And next, please, I will. This is the team with the people that we worked on the web. Baque Alonso is a coordinator. Valentina Longo, that is here with us as a researcher. Paula Garcia Martinez and Maddalena Bianchini, which is me, as an equal opportunity officer. So this was the Spanish team. Next. And we hope that this tool will provide teachers with gender responsive tools, allowing them to respond to the needs of boys and girls in the learning process from a gender equality perspective. So we hope that this will be useful. I think it's an interesting product, and if you have any question, I will be happy to answer. Thanks. And now, thank you. And now my colleague, Ana Maria Socho, the project manager and facilitator for our Croatian partner, Status Sem, will present you the Croatian manual. Thanks, Ana Maria.
Thank you, Mada. Thank you very much. I will continue in the same vein, in a way, and present the KINDER training program and the toolkit, which is more adapted to the Croatian context. Our toolkit, I would say, is sort of an upgrade of the training program. So we see it actually as an additional thing, because we really feel, and the practice has showed us that the teachers really firstly need a training, and then the manual or the toolkit, however we call it, is actually an additional way of them to get more information, to get more resources. So I would actually like to start by telling you just a little bit about the training program, which is actually the core of our intervention. As Tatiana said at the beginning, I mean, we did an extensive needs analysis and research to really establish, like, what are the needs of of these people who work in education with children. And we focused on like three very important dimensions. First, like the level of their interest in this topic. Then we also wanted to find out how prepared do they feel about working on the topics of gender equality, and also what are their values and attitudes concerning this. And based on this, we actually sort of adjusted our approach and build the toolkit that's going to really be useful for them, and that's going to really answer the needs that they themselves identified. I mean, what we found out is actually in the Croatian context, which is unlike, for example, how things are in Spain, is that with kindergarten teachers and primary school teachers, there is really a lack of understanding of basic concepts. So we really needed to start from the very beginning, from scratch. And that's why we were focused on the basics at the beginning. And that was the core of our program. Also, what we saw is that there is a strong presence of biases and stereotypes that the teachers themselves sort of identified as well. And what we saw for them is like that they also have difficulties in how to translate their knowledge, what they know or what they are aware of, to translate that into concrete action. So how to actually respond to a specific classroom situation. Although they may be aware of the issue, they may know something, they may have awareness, they still are not sure how can they sort of put that into action when it comes to concrete situation with children in their classrooms. So taking all that in consideration, we actually wanted to, through our program, we wanted to firstly equip the teachers with competencies that they need for gender sensitive pedagogy, so in their work. We wanted to offer them tools so they can become aware of their gender stereotypes, and sort of help them to stop this transmission that is usually like unconscious transmission of gender stereotypes to children. And we also wanted to offer them supporting tools that they can use in their work. And having that in mind, we designed a training program, which was, well, I mean, we spent like hundreds of hours with these people when you take it all into account. I think we trained almost 450 people in Croatia. So they were like students and practitioners who are already working in kindergartens and schools. And the training focused, as I said, basically on the core issues, like what is gender, and the whole concept of gender socialization. It was a completely unknown dimension in their previous training, and for them it was like a really eye-opening moment, and it opened roads to then all the other topics that we tackled. But the program itself, I think, created like firstly a space for them to talk about these issues, because teachers in Croatia, besides not having formal training in these topics, they also don't have the space to even talk about these issues or to reflect about these issues. It's just something that you don't speak about in your school with your colleagues or with your principal. So I think firstly it was a space where they for the first time may be able to sort of speak about it. And then, of course, we provided a lot of opportunities for them to become aware of their own biases and stereotypes. Of course, we all have those. And there were so many aha moments when these teachers like said, yeah, oh my God, I had no idea that I was actually thinking this and that this can affect this or that in that way. So it was like really, really eye-opening for many of them. The training also, and the program, the Kinder program in general that we did, also provided a space to get involved, to get everybody on board. So it's not just the teachers who are currently working, but also students who are preparing to work in these professions, but also principals, other supporting teaching staff in schools, parents. So I mean, like we said at the beginning, this is an intervention that requires the entire community. Also, we wanted to find a place for them to have support, because there is much opposition in schools. There are many people who are sort of opposed to even working on this, but there is also a small community in a typical school that will be interested in working in this. So we sort of encouraged them to get together and to form a little community where they don't feel alone, and where they can find support. And this is the way to also like deal with this resistance in a way, because this is really something that can be expected, and I will talk about that later on. And also, what we wanted to achieve with the program is for them to take an active approach. So one thing is like, okay, I'm there and I am going to not spread. I mean, like a typical teacher who comes there and says, okay, I'm aware of my biases, I will not spread them, I will be mindful of that. But I think they also understood that they needed to take an extra step. So it's not just like being passive, but also being proactive in their approach. So this is what we wanted to foster with the program. Next, please. So as I said, the training program is the core, and then what is actually added are these things that we develop jointly, Status M, or jointly together with our partners. So the first is the manual, then we reflexive diary, and jointly as a project, we develop picture books, conversation starters, and an animated film, which you will also hear more about later. So this is actually the whole toolkit, which is in addition to the training program. Can you please go to the next one? Yes, so our program, or the manual, is called Program K. It's a manual for gender-sensitive pedagogy in the early childhood education. You can go on. Also, yeah, you can go on. So as I said, this is an upgrade. So after the training, the teachers will get a chance to receive like actually a book, which gives them the theoretical framework. So the texts that are there are more theory about things that we did in the trainings. So firstly, we provide a theoretical framework on what gender transformative or gender sensitive approach is, and why is it important as a tool in fighting gender inequality and combating gender stereotypes and norms. We also spoke about what gender pedagogy is, and this is a completely new concept in the Croatian context. So what it means for professionals who work in education. And as I said, because of the needs, because there is really the lack of basic knowledge of the concept, we've really focused mostly on gender, on also masculinities, on gender socialization. These are the core topics of the program, but also, like, as you can see, expressing communication and expressing emotions, the issue of care, diversities, prevention of violence, and consent. We also think it's super important to speak about consent, even with kids who are like 3 years old, and a special emphasis on this resistance that is actually very present also in the Croatian context, and how to work in these difficult conditions. So this is the manual. You can go on. What we also developed as a tool for teachers is something that we call a reflexive diary. So it's basically like a journal type thingy, where you have a set of introspective questions that encourage teachers and educational professionals to reflect on the topics which are related to gender. And we divided them in like 3 sub topics. So what is the relationship between me as a person and gender, then my work, my pedagogical practice and gender, and the society as a whole and gender. So in these 3 pillars, they can like reflect, introspect, think about how they can then like where they are at the moment, like what are their biases, what are their prejudices, what they need to change, how this affects their work in school, how this affects their relationship with peers or with teachers or with parents. How do they use the space in school? How do they interact with children? So everything is there, and it's a tool that is like very flexible. You can use it at your own pace. You can write, you can doodle, you can like decide, okay, I'm going to answer one question today, or you can like do it all in one day. So it's really a tool that helps teachers focus on these topics more and develop through self-reflection and introspection. And then you can go on. I mean, this is something that was developed mainly by our Portuguese colleagues, but we also adapted it to the Croatian context. And since the Portuguese didn't speak about it, I think I'm just going to say a few words because this is also super important. So this is a picture book for children. There are like 2 versions for younger kids, age 3 to 6, and for a little bit older kids, age 7 to 12. And the picture book actually uses the momentum of the pandemic and the issue of and it explores actually how the pandemic affected the issue of unpaid care work in the families and how it sort of changed the dynamics in the families about how we care and how we do this unpaid work. And it's a great tool for introduction of this topic to young children. Like we use the metaphor of the virus as a little green bug which actually taught the main character's fathers to cook because the mom was sick. She got infected and she couldn't do the work that he usually does. And then the father was there put in the spot. He didn't know how to do anything, but he was sort of forced to to learn. But it also transformed the whole family. So it's a great tool actually to start speaking to children as young as 3 or 4 about the family dynamics of care and the division of care in families. You can go on. Then part of the toolbox is something also that the Portuguese colleagues also developed. We call it Carte Pricho, but it's actually conversation starters. So like simple tool that can be used by teachers, but also like by parents or anybody who works with children. And it offers conversation prompts about issues like you can go on. They're like the packs are there are 3 packs also like adapted to different ages of children, and of course different ages are reflected in the complexity of the sentences and the questions. So it's adapted, and the questions encourage children to express their emotions, to speak about diversities, to think about how they can stand up to violence, and also like it encourages them to start thinking about these stereotypical norms about gender. And it can be used as a tool for like one-on-one when you work directly with one child, for example, in a family, or it can be used in a classroom or in a kindergarten group as a group activity. So because these are the topics that are usually very difficult to broach with children, this is something that we heard from teachers, so they have trouble like starting these conversations, and the cards can actually help them. And the cards were developed also in cooperation with the Equimundo and the Global Boyhood Initiative. So I would just also like to mention that. And for the end, the part of our package is also the animation film, which is called Be Kinder. And I would also like to invite my colleague, Patricia Ferreira, to tell us a bit more about this cartoon, because it's also an amazing tool that can be used for working with children starting from the kindergarten age.
Okay, thank you, Ana Maria. Thank you for also mentioning our children books, also part of the important children or materials oriented to approach children concerning our kinder topics. So we will now present the short animation Be Kinder that was created as part of our Kinder European campaign. So Tiago, if you can play the video, please.
Just 1 moment of suspense.
Okay, just a moment to play it. Yeah, of course. Okay, so I will talk briefly about the creation of this cartoon as part of the Kinder Toolkit. So we started from studies that show that from a very early age, children are taught to function in a reality that continuously recreate the cultural differences and the persistent distinctions in gender socialization between girls and boys. And we know that this also reflects in the movies, in the animations, in the books, in educational materials that are created and used by children. In fact, one of the sources of these gender stereotypes are exactly the animated films in which children are often represented according to this dichotomic gender division, for example, through behaviors or attitudes. And so in collaboration between our European Kinder team and 3D artists, Portuguese 3D artists, Rebeca das Neves and Luísa Lípio, we began this creative process, starting with thinking about our empirical data, writing the scripts together, and imagining characters and scenarios that are part of a collaborative dialogue and world construction between Kinder research and the message we wanted to communicate to a wider audience. And so we wanted to create an educational resource built upon a gender equality perspective that could be used to promote critical thinking, positive role-playing, to encourage children, but also their educators and families to question and to deconstruct gender stereotypes. And so Be Kinder presents key situations that take place at home, at school, and that defy gender stereotypes commonly reproduced in educational and care practices by educators, by parents, by family members. And so these animated characters you saw in the cartoon, the situations that were chosen by the Kinder team are example we wanted to focus and that can break away from traditional gender norms. And so to represent diversity and difference, we created children, parents, siblings, friends, educators, and we chose this diverse set of experiences that are part of children's everyday life. We also created this special character that makes the connection between the various segments of the story, and that refers to the children's universe, the dog. And the dog in our story interacts with the situations throughout all the narrative and plays an important role in guiding us along the story and reinforcing positive emotions. While we wanted to focus on the importance of creating educational media with our Kinder perspectives, we also wanted this short animation to tell a story that is well adjusted to children and that is easy for children to understand and to refer to their own experiences. We believe that the inspiring message of Be Kinder is that it is possible to transform our practice at all stages of our lives and in all of our roles as educators or parents, if we allow ourselves and our children to be open to these transformative possibilities and to engage with the creation of spaces in which we learn from an early age that we can all be allies, we can all be caring, and we can all be kinder. So this is our main, I believe, message of our Be Kinder movie. And I think that now I will give the floor to Tatiana to present our Kinder European Manual.
Thank you so much. What about now? Thank you so much, Patricia. I think the animation is one of the most beautiful animations I've ever seen. So humble that we are. but I told the Portuguese team that we pilot the animation with my 4-year-old son, and he asked me to watch it 8 times. And he knows exactly how to explain the animation as well as the children's books that we have. So it was already piloted with him. Perhaps we need to propose a new project to really take our interesting toolkits and animations to show that sometimes we don't need words to share what we're doing. So as I mentioned previously, today is the first day that we have our Kinder European manual online. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Danielle, for the huge efforts to have the manual online. Before going through our chapter, because this part, we're going to focus on the 4 chapters of the European manual. This is a manual that will be online, and the challenge was to reflect about specific issues that cross-cuts all the Kinder project. I'll ask Tiago to just click on Kinder European Manual, because it's an hyperlink. Perhaps we can see it online.
I don't know.
He doesn't know how to. But I just wanted to share with you. So here is our European manual finally, and the title is Be Kinder, because we went from Kinder to Kinder. All the time people were asking, so is it the project name is Kinder or Kinder? And I used to answer both. And so finally we went from Kinder to Kinder with the animation, cartoon movie, and with our European manual. So Be Kinder, Unraveling Paths to Address Gender Stereotypes in Education and Early Childhood. And we also invited, you can change to the PowerPoint, please. We also, of course, invited our colleagues from the International Step-by-Step Association to be part of this joint effort and to make some reflections from their own perspective. So let's start by chapter 1. So the opening chapter by the Portuguese team is Kinder, tackling gender stereotypes in education and early childhood, an introduction. The second chapter is on positive gender socialization at home and school for transformative change, and is by ISA. Chapter 3, inclusive playgrounds, tiny spatial modifications for social transformation by our colleagues from Spain, CEPAIM. And finally, chapter 4, countering backlash, overcoming resistance in challenging contexts. And we're going to share, our colleagues from Croatia, some really big challenges they went through while we try to implement Kinder. Go ahead, please. So in chapter 1, it's basically an introduction authored by me, Marta Mascarenhas, a colleague of ours here present too, and she was not formally part of Kinder, but she is from the family. And Patricia, go ahead. And this, I just take this here. So this is a theory and rationale of Kinder. So the aim of Kinder is to challenge gender stereotypes and promote a balanced socialization of girls and boys. And so in this chapter, we go through the core strategy adopted by education systems and programs to achieve healthier and more balanced societies, because we know this has been a priority at European level. We go through education programs targeting gender equality in several age groups. We know that this has been a priority at European Union, but we noticed a gap, of course. that gender equality approaches in early child development stages, like kindergarten, preschools, and elementary schools, they have not been a priority at European level and at the national level, but from the EU members, of course. So our project's initial premise was that stereotypical ideas about gender roles underlie challenges related to psychosocial developments and well-being and profound social inequalities. The project was implemented in 3 European countries. In fact, for those who don't know us, we work together since 2018, and I'm sure that we want to stay together, and we now know how to deal with each other, and I think all our approaches complement each other. So Portugal, Spain, Croatia, and now a new partner, the International Step-by-Step Association, who was a consultant in KINDER, but also a partner in a new project that Aisha will mention. So KINDER generic goals are to provide a gender responsive and transformative tool to teachers, educators, and other school staff, because we know that usually educators and school teachers, they have children inside the room, but other school staff, they have the power to prevent gender-based violence or to promote gender equality, enabling them to respond to the specific needs of girls and boys using what we call gender equitable teaching and learning processes. Also, one of our goals was to engage families in participatory processes to promote diversity within and outside schools, because based on the research we carried in each country, you know that sometimes families can be an ally, but sometimes they block the efforts to promote more equitable teaching and education. The third goal was to support school managements and national public authorities to mainstream gender issues at early age levels. Next, please, Tiago. So starting early, excuse me. Starting early, addressing gender equality. This was a priority for us. I think was Madalena or Valentina mentioned that gender stereotype transmission starts at an early age, we know at the age of 3, and it is deep-rooted in institutions, both families and schools. And these gender roles, norms, and stereotypes are passed on to children through interactions, through behaviors and expectations. For example, clothes, toys, stories, books, how we address children, etc. So expected behaviors from children from an early age critically impact their view of the world in the future and how they shape their future social relationships. So we need to start to work early. Professionals working with young children are disregarded as a priority for intervention in the context of deconstructing gender stereotypes. We know it's a concern, but in fact they have been disregarded, and this was shown by our research, demonstrating little importance for early interventions. And so, of course, we consider, and also the EU considers as a gap in the EU strategy. Although the concept of gender and gender stereotypes begin to take root in children between the ages of 3 to 7, in most EU countries, initiatives engaging education professionals in promoting gender equality do not target young children education environments. Next, please, Tiago. So we also go through the impact of gender on the education system in our first chapter. Gender differentiation continues to shape practices and curricula, both visible and hidden, which makes its deconstruction particularly challenging when they're hidden. Most school staff are not trained to address gender-related issues and/or are not aware of their own gender bias and thus they contribute, even not consciously, to the perpetuation of gender stereotypes. Interaction with children constructs gender and reflects the social norms of the society in which we live, impacting on the learning environment, of course. So teachers and educators do play a key role in the healthy and equitable development of children. Go ahead. So we already went through the main goal of the KINDER program, and the priorities were and are to have updated data, to have education and pedagogical materials and teaching recommendations in both public and private kindergartens and primary schools. Those were the most important aspects that were mentioned to us by education professionals. And KINDER's main effort is to create changes at institutions at national levels. And why not at European level? We'll see in the end with the comments of our European representatives. So to achieve this goal, the project has established a series of partnerships with public authorities in each of the KINDER partner countries. And this is one of the main recommendations in all our projects, is to engage government authorities from the very beginning. Next, please. So we are located in 3 countries, but why? We have already implemented various governmental and institutionalized initiatives for the promotion of gender equality in the preschool stages. Our education systems have many similarities. So in all the 3 countries, compulsory schooling starts between 6 and 7 years of age, and the basic cycles of studies are similar. And also in all the 3 countries, preschool education is optional and provided by both public and private kindergartens. So Croatia, Portugal, and Spain, there's a mistake here, are aligned with most European countries' education systems, which makes them good case studies for the development of these specific methodologies, meaning that they can be scaled up to other countries at European level and beyond the European Union. So the implementation of KINDER knowledge production was underpinned by quantitative and Can you hear me now? Now you can, because we're not using the machine. Tiago, you can share the screen and I can. No. So just some technical problems as usual. It's part of the virtual world. Let's consider this a short break for those who are following on YouTube. You can go and grab some coffee, some water. So as you know, Tiago, besides being part of the research team, is also because technical support. We can hear me, so that's because things are working now. We were in the slide with the beautiful flags of our country.
Hi.
Okay, so let's move ahead because we're already in the end of the presentation of chapter 1 of the Kinder European Manual. And I was saying that the Kinder knowledge production was underpinned by quantitative and qualitative research involving professionals and parents and families in each country. And the results basically gave us support to build our own national handbooks as well as our toolkits. So basically, the aims of the whole research was to understand recent trends and the state of implementation of gender mainstreaming in early education, as well as the impacts of the EU good practices. And the data collection was very important to have updated data to identify the main critical gaps and needs of education professionals, but also families, and to develop these gender-sensitive curricula for children aged 3 to 6 and 7 to 12. So, Kinder major contributions, in a nutshell, are to raise awareness of the need for an EU approach to tackling the persistence of gender stereotypes focused on masculinities, because we didn't mention till now, I think, but our strategy is to promote gender equality by focusing on promoting caring and nonviolent masculinities from early ages in education systems, to target the potential reproduction and transmission of gender stereotypes by professionals in kindergarten and basic schools at national levels and international, to promote changes in attitudes towards gender stereotypes and sexism from an early age, both inside and outside schools, to develop the didactic material for teachers and school staff on gender-sensitive pedagogy, to promote gender equality and combat gender stereotypes, and finally, to foster public authorities in mainstreaming gender-inclusive education at national and EU levels. That I think we are managing to and succeeding in doing that. Next, please. So we also implemented national awareness campaigns. Here are some examples of the campaigns we have. Everything is online in our Kinder website. We use the same layouts, designs, but we translate it into different languages. And of course, the purpose was to target broader audiences beyond education professionals. Next, please. Here you have the Portuguese version of the conversation starters. So we have an online version that can be used in schools by families, in reflexive groups. They focus more on boys, but they can also be used, of course, with girls. But they function as a starter of conversation to talk about emotions and to talk about boys feel, etc. Then the Portuguese versions of the children's books, and the title is "The Green Bug Taught Daddy How to Cook." So of course, the green bug was COVID-19 and the relationships, the virtual relationships between families during lockdowns. Next, please. So basically here, it's where we include the links to all our pedagogical tools and recommendations in the playroom. We have our own books, but also other tools that can be used. In the area of resources, you can find all the materials that we produced and the training methodology. Go ahead. And thank you so much. And sorry for the technical problems. These things happen. And I look forward to hear to my colleague and good friend Aisha Alali from the International Step-by-Step Association, consultant of the KINDER project and an organization that is specialist in early childhood education, but also with very interesting projects on gender equality. Aisha, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. I have to start with saying it's an honor to be here. It's great to see you all, and I want to congratulate you with all the work that you've done. I think there's been amazing achievements, and we are also happy to be a part of it as ISA and to be partners in different projects and maybe more in the future, hopefully. Because as you all mentioned, I think we have a lot of work to do in this field because it's a challenging process, but it's also very empowering and freeing. So not to take too much time, thank you for having me. I'm Aisha Alaili. I'm a junior program manager from International Step-by-Step Association, ISA. What we do in general, thank you for introducing us, but very briefly, we are a member association with more than 90 members, and we advocate and support for competent early childhood systems, and we promote for the importance of early years, early childhood development, as well as the importance of a qualified workforce, because as you all mentioned, it's very important that we have a qualified workforce for high quality early childhood services and systems. And also it's very important for us to promote equality and equitable and accessible education for all and integrated services. So next, please. Well, we all talked about it. I don't want to take too much time. We know gender socialization is deeply rooted, embedded in our life, that societal norms surround us from birth. And throughout the life, we learn and understand their value and relevance to the society, and we gradually accept them and internalize them. And this process begins early in life. We can say that gender socialization can begin by the age 3, but it has roots far before, even before a child is born. Families can get excited about whether it's a boy or it's a girl, how to arrange the environment at home, what to expect. So they already start forming some expectations, some kind of behaviors, and implicitly or explicitly, without knowing, unconsciously or consciously. So by adolescence, it goes from understanding the gender identity when the child is very young. It stabilizes around age 5, and it becomes consistent. By age 7, this is the most, as Tatiana mentioned, this is the age where most of the children start formal schooling, and where we see that many of the gender stereotypes, norms, and values are already becoming consistent at this very early age. Like the little young boys would believe boys should be strong, girls believe that they're emotional or weak. So this kind of beliefs already start to form at this very early age, and it intensifies through adolescence. And we know that this is a really complex process and across generations through internalized gender identities. You also mentioned the importance of parents. Can we go ahead, please, Tiago? So how we socialize as we all know, there are many, many different effects how we socialize and how we understand and learn gender norms and stereotypes. But cumulative research show that the main primary agents of socialization are the parents. As you can see, it starts very, very early in the early childhood, and the impact of parents is very high. But they are not alone as the child, grows. We see that the effect of peers come into the picture, the effect of school and work and institutions and media as we grow older. And this is a process that can go all of our lives. We are always changing and learning and really, so I'm saying this because we shouldn't be really pessimistic about change. We can make it happen in the early adulthood and adulthood as well. But if we start early, we are really solidifying some of the efforts that we want to achieve. Next, please. So we are all talking about gender transformative approaches. We already talked about it, but I want to also say a couple of words why this is so important, because harmful gender stereotypes and norms, they limit the potential of children to become full-fledged, unique individuals and express themselves. And it can actually restrict different areas of development. Let's say if we are expecting girls to do certain tasks, boys to do certain tasks, then it's less opportunities for growth and development for children, for example. And it can be linked to gender-based violence and harassment in the long run. Like there's research showing that young men and boys are more likely to perpetuate violence towards their partners when they have when they hold rigid gender norms and stereotypes. As we know, it limits educational career and opportunities, for example, in STEM jobs for women and girls, but also for boys and men in caring jobs, which is it's an important area that also we need to talk about. And there are differences in school achievements, and I can count many more. So what we want to do with the gender transformative approach is that we want to transform harmful norms and practices, and we want to promote equality by strengthening positive norms. So as I said, supporting parents and teachers in promoting positive gender socialization is very important to really break the cycle and make them aware and make them allies in this journey. Ultimately, the goal of gender transformative approaches is to have a structural and societal change by detecting the root causes of gender inequality and ensuring gender equality and protection of rights in this manner. So we have a lot to do to support parents and teachers. Next, please, Tiago. I would like to talk about a little bit how this transformation looks like and where we can start from and where we can go. I'm sure that, we have all heard about the amazing toolkits and modules where they try to make this change, actually. So I would like to give a couple of examples, starting with parents. So from gender to gender transformative approaches in parenting, if you ask parents, most of the time they are saying they don't discriminate between their sons and daughters, and even the most progressive families, most of the time they say like, no, we're treating them equally. But gender norms, values, stereotypes are very, very deeply rooted, and it's very important to question them from the deep understanding within, to understand our own biases. But even if the parents think and try to behave in a gender equal manner, in these cases, children might still receive implicit messages from their parents. Or explicit messages, but most of the time implicit messages go under, they're not going very visible in the daily interactions with their children. For example, they can model some kind of behaviors at home in the way they engage in household duties or the way they sustain the relationship at home. And then there can be certain speech, actions, behaviors that would hint children to behave in a certain way, giving dolls to girls, guns, very generic examples, but also praising girls for certain things and praising boys for certain things. in this kind of examples, what we want to do through gender transformative approaches is that we want to actively teach, to listen to them, to listen to the uniqueness of this individual, regardless of their gender, when we are really getting an interaction with children, and really praising them and interacting with them in a gender neutral manner without expectations. For this, we need a high awareness as well. And we want to model them about democratic and co-sharing responsibilities between genders. We want to really select toys or encourage any type of play for any type of gender without gender stereotypes. And of course, when we engage in gender-based practices, we can talk about gender. We can talk about, for example, menstruation or things like that in the family. No topic is seen as taboo. As you know, Tiago, can we go to the next one? We need to have parents as allies when we're speaking about education and teachers. So first, I want to focus on the teachers and want to move towards the schools and the system. Similarly, teachers might hold implicit biases. I think earlier, Ana Maria and Madalena mentioned that they also need to reflect their own biases. Sometimes they don't realize what they're doing. They think they're doing a good job, and they are actually, trying to do their best most of the time, teachers, but these are the things so deeply embedded. So some of the research already showed that, for example, boys might receive more attention from educators during early years in preschool settings. Teachers unconsciously might reward appropriate behavior in the way they expect, like for girls, their clothes, their hairstyles, or having boys in more, active games or big gross motor skills, for example. They might unconsciously separate boys in tasks. They might give less challenging tasks physically to girls. Or they might use gendered language with good intentions. So it's very important to think that when we talk about gender, because we all experience, and I'm sure you're going to talk about how to react to the resistance. I can understand where the resistance comes from, because when you talk about gender, it's it's very hard to really decompose. We don't go there, so I can also understand. But self-reflection is very important in the way how they use the language. Of course, there are ways towards positive gender socialization. Teachers should be doing they're helping students to question the gender-based attitudes, assigning similar duties to female and male students, and really giving equal chances to listen to each child individually, engage in child-centered pedagogy. So this is very important that we turn around, and for high quality education, we need to really focus on child-centeredness, where we give each children unique opportunities to express themselves and grow holistically. Can we go to the next one, please? I don't want to also take too much time. Well, yes, as I said, when we talk about parents and teachers, but we cannot make the structural change. We cannot really have a gender transformative environment in society in a day. It's a long process. We also need schools, and we also need systems to be competent and comprehensive. For example, in the school environment, we need to really promote for gender equality and inclusion is addressed in the environment, in the learning environment, in the curricula, in every corner of the school. It should be visible that it is gender sensitive and gender transformative. And it should be also thought about in the management systems, policies, practices. It recognizes of all students uniquely. And the staff, from the principal to any kind of staff in the school environment, they should be supported, including, of course, educators and teachers and practitioners, supported continuously in promoting positive gender socialization. And of course, it's not about only about being female and male. We need to have more inclusive, adequate infrastructure. For example, thinking also about disabilities in a school environment. And and it's important that the schools connects with the community and connects with the parents, which I will come in my next slide. But also I would like to really briefly say the importance in the system, where we need where you see here 5 components of a gender transformative competence system, where we need to have all components from curricular development to quality assurance, through workforce development, family community engagement, and planning and budgeting. Most of the times it's so many steps that this doesn't come to planning and budgeting, but it's also very important to consciously really invest in this practices as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is my last slide. Very briefly, to say how can education systems and schools support and engage parents to promote positive gender socialization, which is really crucial that we really take the parents on board without making them intimidated, and also really take the teachers on board. So first of all, as you also already mentioned, through pre and in-service training, it's very important that teachers really understand their own biases in a safe manner, and to be able to apply a gender transformative curriculum. And we have to pay conscious attention of engaging parents and building family school partnerships, and really building these communities together with parents so that they become allies and they continue these efforts at home as well. So the continuation of school and at home creates an environment around the child where the child feels supported and safe in expressing themselves. And of course, we need to design education programs that support gender equality in every manner, also really paying attention to the intersectionality to be inclusive. For example, the programs we design should not restrict the employment of parents. With the programs we design should involve fathers in an equal manner as well, and regard parents as parents regardless of their gender as well. So Tiago, for my last slide, can you go ahead? Thank you so much for listening. I didn't have a chance to showcase it here, but also I want to talk about our work is continuing. We are continuing our work in engagement of men and fathers in nurturing care. We just started the project, and Tatiana is smiling because we are partnering in this project, and we're very excited, which is where huge overlaps with KINDER in terms of raising awareness on certain issues. And as Isa, we're also expanding our work on gender and fatherhood. We are also in 4E Parent, which is the national Italian project, what we are building up a narrative. So I believe that also this is a chance for us to grow and really come together and synergize our work and continue our communication. And please follow us on Isa's website also for further updates and events on these issues. So I hope I didn't take too much time. Thank you so much. Hope to be in contact with you. Thank you.
Not listening?
Now,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Aisha, for preparing this presentation and for writing the chapter for our European menu. Now I would like to go to chapter 3 of our European manual about inclusive playgrounds, tiny spatial modifications for social transformation by Valentina Longo, Spain. Go ahead, Valentina.
Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you very much to all the consortium. I'm really happy to be here. It's really beautiful to see the results of 2.5 years project this morning here together. So at the CEPAIN Foundation, when we were thinking about the European manual, we decided to offer an instrument to work on gender equality and inclusion through space. It's obvious and banal to say that space is not neutral, that everybody's equal using space. Is not like that, we know. We know that space is perceived and appropriated in a differential way, depending on the subjects inhabiting it. And we also know that space is relational and it's permanently under construction. This means that it can be transformed. So at the beginning of the KINDER project, we were mapping the status of the implementation of gender equality in schools in general, not only on training, but also on other kind of policies. And during the research, we realized that there were many projects that have been focusing on playgrounds. These were transformative processes aimed at fostering inclusive practices in the playgrounds. On the one side, they were focused on promoting physical activity others than football, that is the game that is played here in Spain. On the other side, it was also focused on promoting socialization through play, especially cooperative games. So let's try to play other games. And also they were aimed at diversifying the use of space and of Spain as well. So it was observed that the recess time could be a moment of exclusion for some pupils or of violent practices, of solitude, and all these things remained hidden in the classroom. And so the playgrounds were a sort of privileged sites to observe how the socialization, how the pupils interact among them. And in many places, this inclusive playgrounds project started. It was like 10 years ago, more or less. These processes have different objectives. From the one side, they are aimed at balance inequalities in the use of space between gender, but also between ages, origins, disability, in an inclusive way, trying to tackle different kinds of inequalities. And so the question is, can we think, for example, about the space in which girls are not in the corner, and at the center there are pupils, there are boys playing football? What can we do to change this kind of practices? On the other side, the second question is how can we promote the use of a shared space? How can we promote resources and activities that mix gender, backgrounds, functional diversities, and so on? And then how can we decrease gender differentiation in activities? Because also in the use of space, of course, there is an answer to stereotype and to combat gender role models. So in this article, we present some good practices we encountered during this research process, and we also decided to put some practical tips to start the process of transformation of the playgrounds. We decided to take into consideration some project undertaken by Pandora and Mirabella, that is a cooperative composed by women, and they are specialized in communication, research, and participatory processes, and always with a gender perspective. And they gave us some tips. They gave us some basic, let's say, rules in order for the transformation to work. So the first thing important to be taken into consideration is how to build a really participatory processes in which the entire educational community is involved. So it is not only the teachers, it is also the management of the school, the pupils, the families, technical staff, and public administration. And in the process, each of these subject is considered a sort of expert in its own territory. The second one, and linked to the first one, is transparency and communication. So in order to involve the entire educational community, it is very important to have a transparent communication, constant communication with families, especially with those families that are not in very tight communication with the school, that do not belong to parents association or that are less present in school life. In this sense, the process is a global process in which the whole community is involved, and it can also foster new connection between the school and the entire community. Another important aspect concerns the kind of transformation. We are not thinking, they are not thinking about giant transformation, but small transformation sustained over time. So money that has to be invested there is not too much. And on the other side, one of the key aspects is the establishment of maintenance routines and the determination of a group responsible for the maintenance. So small changes and people in charge of maintaining them. Another important thing is the support of the directive group, of the management group of the school, because if the directive group is not involved, you can have a wonderful diagnosis with a wonderful participatory process, but these changes will never happen. And then the last key is enlarging the concept of transformation. So we are not talking about large-scale work. There are other mechanisms of transformation. For example, organizing a bike day, organizing activities in the playground to change the usual functioning of it. And this is already changing the use of space. This is already changing the relationship there without the need of a physical big change. So the playground transformation is not only a physical transformation, it is more changing of its dynamics. And it's a matter of intervening to not reproduce and produce hierarchization. And we think that we could write an article in which these good practices can be widespread, can be used by anyone. And it's a sort of social transformation in which the whole educational community is involved and which is not too big and which is not too expensive, and that really changes the aspect and what happens there. So I invite you to read and to organize some process of this kind. I give now the floor to Ana Maria Socho, that is going to tell us about countering backlash, overcoming resistance in challenging contexts.
Thank you very much, Valentina. I don't know if you can hear me. I hope you can. Excellent. Well, to start off, honestly, when we first started the project, we didn't even think about resistance and backlash. I mean, it was sort of in the back of our minds, but it was not something that we seriously considered. And we certainly didn't, I think, imagine that we would be writing about it and speaking about it in our final conference. But then reality sort of kicked us in the head. And I think this presentation, but also the fact that we wrote about it in the European manual is a reaction to that, a reaction to reality, but also a reaction to our sort of negotiations with our project officers in the European Commission, and actually it was maybe their suggestion to address this, because we became aware that instances of resistance and backlash are a reality, and they're happening all over Europe. Teachers, educators, and actually everybody who is connected with feminist movements and who work in the areas of gender equality and inclusion and nonviolence, they are all actually facing, or they are at risk of facing backlash. And basically there is no support. We also figured that out. So maybe this will be a contribution to a coordinated response from the European Union. Because I mean, European Union invests substantial funds into projects that promote gender equality, but there is no support actually to the implementers, to people who are on the field out there facing these realities every day. So we hope that this is a contribution to a shared, let's say, measures that we can all take together as a protection against these instances. I think we're very much behind our schedule, so I will be like really short. I mean, backlash is also very hard to define in a way. So what level are we speaking about? Is it a backlash happening in a single institution, or is it a more systematic backlash that is happening at the level of society and government, like we now see in some of the countries where extreme right-wing political parties are being elected and are actually pushing back on all the progress that is happening, that has happened so far systematically. We are focusing here especially on the backlash that is faced by educators, teachers, people who are working in education around the topics of gender equality. And we used our experience in a way to sort of try to formulate the best ways and strategies on how to deal with this. Yeah, we can speak about backlash very broadly as a like types of resistance and hostility or aggression that arises as a response to reform, to any kind of progressive change or agenda. And I would say that is almost inevitable. I mean, like if we want to speak about that. And it's not a new thing. I mean, we've been experiencing it, especially in this field of gender education or sex education in schools since the early 90s, I would say, dating back from the times when in France, first educational reforms were introduced in this area. And it's been present like in many countries in Europe. I will just briefly explain actually what happened in Croatia to us in the framework of this project. So it's been actually now exactly 1 year or so since we were targeted by an organized groups who were actively opposing our work within the KINDER project. Last year, so we were conducting one of the workshops with kindergarten teachers in one kindergarten in Zagreb. It was a regular workshop. It was a regular workshop, nothing special. We wrote a little news item on our social media. And then I can say like all the hell broke loose. We started getting threatening calls regarding our like physical safety. We were really threatened by violence. There were like people trying to enter our office at one point. We were afraid for our physical safety. We started working from home at one point. And there was this huge outbreak of violent messages coming through all of our social media channels and our emails. So basically, they were framed as concerned parents who wanted to complain about our work in kindergarten in a way that we are like corrupting little children, that we are imposing gender ideology, that we are transing children, that we are grooming them, that we're pedophiles. So it was like that level of discourse that was used, completely unargumented, but very effective at the beginning. And also it was not just us. They were targeting the kindergarten in question, so it was also very stressful for the teachers there, for the kindergarten principal. They were threatened with inspections and then the stuff like that. So at one point, we sort of decided to see how can we actually counter this. And based on our experience, we came to a set of recommendations that we can now share with other organizations who are facing similar issues. Tiago, I know I completely skipped the the presentation. You can just move on. I will tell you when to. Yeah, you just keep clicking. Yeah, still, yeah. Yes. You can also go on. Perfect, thank you. So I think it's super important that we prepare even for these kinds of situations, even before backlash actually occurs, because it's clear that we can expect it at some point. So as a preparation, it's like really important to identify who are your allies and supporters, but also who might be your opposition. And of course, you need to have a program that you want to deliver. If we're speaking in the context of gender transformative education, but you have to also be prepared to make it adaptable and start maybe with baby steps if you are in a particularly challenging situation. So if you cannot work with the entire system, you can identify niche spaces and people and allies where you can actually deliver your interventions and programs, and that will help you to slowly build momentum and gain supporters, so you can start spreading actually your program. It's also important to work with others, to engage as many supporters as you can, and of course, if you can try in advance to gain support from relevant institutions. That helped us in a way, because our programs are generally accredited by the Ministry of Science. So that was a big plus for us, because we had a concrete tool to show as a countering message to the opposition. But if the backlash occurs, then you really have to be prepared. You can go on, Tiago. At that point, it's important, of course, to recognize what kind of backlash are you facing, because there are like different forms, from like small coercive ways of showing power to like really violent forms that are that are threatening your like physical integrity and stuff. So it's very important to see what kind of backlash is happening and also who is behind the backlash. In our case, we at the beginning we thought it was a wider action by actual parents of the children who whose children go to this kindergarten, but we very fastly we realized that it's actually not the parents of the children, but some random people from organized groups who pretended to be parents and who wanted to use this discourse to influence the kindergarten. Sometimes it's also useful to listen to what the opposition has to say. Of course, people have different opinions. They can bring forth some arguments, but it's also very important to have your boundaries and to be very firm about what you're advocating at. Sometimes it's not very productive to enter into communication because it will just make things worse. And this was the case for us, for example, because we were constantly provoked by the other side to explain what we're doing, so they can like find little points that would push us further into conflict. So we avoided that completely. It's really important to, when you're facing an organized barrage, which is intense, you really need to think about how you respond to this as an organization. Maybe set up some procedures, who will be in charge of what, because it's a big undertaking. In our case, it was like dealing with the media, dealing with police, gathering support from our allies. So it's a workload actually. So I think it's very smart to sort of devise an organizational strategy of how to deal with resistance, but also to take care of yourself in a way, because this is a very stressful. These are very stressful situations. You feel anxious, you feel scared. We really felt scared, like really, like we were afraid that somebody is going to come into our office and like beat us all with a baseball bat. So it's very important to prioritize also your health and your safety. And what also helped us enormously was actually our peers. So our fellow civil society organizations who are working in the similar field, who have already faced similar challenges, they're the ones who gave us the initial support, but they were also the ones who sort of changed the narrative behind the social media posts, because it was so much hate coming at the beginning, but then also tons of supportive messages came, and it helped actually quieten down the opposition. So these are all the things that you can do if you are facing this kind of a situation. But more importantly, I think we all have to work as a society to stop these things from happening in the first place. And I would just like to use my last minutes to really address policymakers, especially educational institutions, because they are the key at the national level, but also at municipal level. People who are in charge of educational policy, we urge you really to be the ones who are proactive. So do introduce and support education which is inclusive, which deals with gender. That has to come from you. It's not always the initiative of the civil society or other or other actors in the society. So we need you to promote the integration of gender equality and education in schools and develop policies and guidelines and curriculums. So it's not us always who are on the front line when it comes to this. Also, public policymakers, they need to use evidence-based arguments, and they need to use science and research to support their interventions in the educational systems, because this helps also to counter the opposing narrative. And what is maybe most important is really to be there, like if and when a backlash happens, you need to address it promptly and decisively. Ministries or like municipal offices for education, they need to establish clear protocols of how to report harassment, how to address it, how to help the individuals that are facing threats and threats of violence. And we need really you to stand with us, like condemn harassment and stand in solidarity with the teachers and educators that are targeted. So this is a clear message also that we all share the responsibility, us as the organizations who work in this field, but also public institutions that are in charge of these issues. I hope that we will not be facing this anymore in the future, but for the time being, we are using our experience and giving forth some recommendations and steps that can be useful for other people who are working in this field. So yeah, thank you very much. And I would like to invite Tatiana to take over.
Thank you so much. And now you can hear me. Yes, so no, just a word of thank you to Status and all the team for all your courage and for staying with us after all the challenges you went through. And thank you for accepting the challenge to write a chapter for the European Manual on these sort of issues that usually are not considered when we see an open poll or someone to go to when we deal with these sort of things. So I invite Madalena. I invite Madalena to present your national representative who will comment the KINDER manual and toolkit. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. So yeah, our national government specialist for Spain is Maria Escalona Ponce. She's a social educator and member of the governing board of the Association of Social Educators of the Valencian Community. Hi, Maria. We asked you and all the other government specialists a few questions about the theme addressed in the KINDER project, policies and good practices that exist in our countries, and possibilities of sustainability with this team. So I'm happy to let you take up the space, and thank you for being there.
Oh, first of all, sorry for my accent, my English, and really thank you for inviting us. Actually, I am working with children, so maybe in some time, some children, they're gonna appear and say something. I am close in the room. I am social educator, and I represent to the official College of Educators and Social Educators of the Valencia community. We are a non-profit organization that works by and for the profession, defending the interest of all members, but also the interest of the entire society. To do this, one of the main tasks we address is to offer variety in our training, in courses, and since our profession has a wide variety of areas in which we work, we think a training offer is essential for our professionals of social education. We have spent several years working on the diversity and equality topics with different entities. So about the questions you asked us, one of the things, the first things you asked, it was about the importance that what the importance do we give to the topic in this project, in the KINDER project. So the topics covered in the training are totally directly with our profession, and they are essential for our daily work. Since we work with childhood and youth, adolescents, a large number of social educational professionals, workers. Also, we receive many cases that they are really important in these teams. So that's why our professional group has asked us about training in identification like expression of sex, inclusive sexual education, also any relationships about affective sexual mainly. They have also sent us some requirements about training in other sensitive topics like LGBT diversity, ethnic and cultural diversity, masculinities, the new masculinities, and also equality or training in self-care. Our society is changing very fast. We have reading a lot of fast changes in the last times, like pandemic. We also this refugee and crisis in Europe, bringing us so many problems in the base of the social communities, and a lot of tension in our children and youth that come from the technology. It comes from this addiction, this new addiction they do have to the technology. So this is all changing really fast. So we must change so fast. We must train and inform us to be able to, to answer these complex situations. If our children have different needs, we have to grow and we have to take formation about these new things. Like assertiveness, I don't know if it's that the right name, assertiveness, assertive, or conflict resolution, and fully on diversity, and offering spaces, safe spaces, but also tools to these centers to be able to achieve this inclusive school, that we need so much. The regulations, both in state or regional, they are really different initiatives, such as playgrounds co-educational, or other spaces where is the same opportunities in equality and equity. So another question. Oh, I guess I answered two. Sorry, I answered 1 and 2 questions. The third one is what possibilities do we see for making this sustainable? So in this, we think that political impulse is required, but in all levels, like international level, in the Union European centers, and also in our communities. Spain is like a federal state with different communities, at the local, where the children and youth people live, in the towns, cities, the local policies. This impulse should involve a networking with different keys and through different such as universities, professional associations, press associations, that's important for us too. So it's necessary to continue working in the Convention Rights of Children Convention Rights, and to defend them, since we live a moment of a really cultural change, and our childhood is very vulnerable. They have a very fewer relation between them, but a lot of technical possibilities. So I would like to finish my speech. Mention Francesco Tonucci, which is with the educator for us, that says that we have taken our children the childhood by overprotect them, and we have left them helpless. So that's my thing. That's what I wanted to say. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you very much for sharing with us and answering the questions the Spanish team made. I would like now to invite Isabel Lopes from Portugal. Isabel is a longtime partner. In fact, she knows us since Equiex, and she's one of the main responsibles of having our Equiex manual on the Ministry of Education website. The Directorate General of Education has our manual as a good practice, and I know she wants to put the Kinder manual also online, considered a good practice. Isabel Lopes, she's the coordinator of the Directorate General of Education within the National Strategy of Education for Citizenship and Gender Equality. Isabel, the floor is yours. I can't see you.
Okay, thank you, Tatiana. Special regards to Kinder team. And I would like to thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to be here. Like my Spanish colleague, I'm very sorry about my English, but I will try to do my best. I've been delighted to hear you about talking this amazing project. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the questions. I start talking about some data that it's important to reflect on. The school performance of girls is higher than that of the boys, covering different subjects because they choose different areas. Although there are a moment women graduate than men, although there are more women graduated than men, in general, they are graduated in the areas of health and social protection and business science, administration and law, and only a minority are graduated in STEM areas. Thus, societal gender stereotypes are maintained. Education is oriented towards the educator woman, the protective woman, and the caring woman. Regarding the sharing of responsibilities in the private sphere of the home. Data in Portugal shows that care tasks continue to fall essentially on women. Women are usually responsible for household chores, men reported more frequently doing small repairs and restorations at home. Also, when there are small children, it is the women who indicates that they oversee the related tasks with the care and follow up the baby or the child, such as dressing them, taking them to the doctor, helping with homework, etc. With men not excelling in any of these tasks. In view of this data, it is essential to counteract the male pattern of reduced allocation of time for domestic work. Being a secondary performer of domestic tasks and care. For the sharing of family responsibilities between women and men, equality valuing fatherhood and motherhood, an essential aspect of reconciling professional, personal, and family life. It is important to challenge and overcome stereotypes right from childhood. In preschool education, the promotion of inclusive activities impacts gender socialization, allowing choices in the future, in continuing studies, in professional achievement, as well as in the sphere of the home. The responsibility of domestic tasks and caring are conditioned by social gender standards. School, and in this case, kindergartens and primary schools, are spaces where the appreciation of parenthood and the sharing of domestic tasks must be reflected in day-to-day activities. Must be reflected in the day-to-day activities carried out involving gender socialization, contradicting stereotypes inscribed in children's toys, for example. Work to be developed in conjunction with families, of course. Regarding another social and cultural source, based on promotion of toxic masculinity, gender violences continues to affect most societies. And of course, Portuguese society is no exception, affecting women more. Socialization from childhood based on non-violent education, promoting healthy relationships, reinforcing the importance of caring regardless of gender. Motherhood and fatherhood, where co-responsibility is the cornerstone, contributes to more equitable societies and to prevention of domestic violence. Gender socialization since childhood contributes to elimination of stereotypes and violent masculinity. In addition to gender violence, other types of violence such as homophobia, transphobia, and xenophobia are examples that lead to discrimination and exclusion. Currently, topics such as sexual orientation and gender identity are addressed in an educational context, promoting inclusion and opposing hate speech, which extends to other cultural or racial differences. The recognition that we are all different but equal in rights and duties starts right away in preschool education, while valuing difference where multicultural contexts will be by excellence an asset in sharing and learning. Learning to know, learning to do, learning to live together, to live with others, and learning to be are elements that must be seen in their different relationships and implications. All this learning takes place in kindergarten and primary school, particularly in playing with peers. KINDER is a project focused on childhood, which focus on specific and continuous training on pedagogical transformation, considering the social, family, and cultural context of each place of school, of course. The focus on pedagogical training for professionals who deal with these ages, developing activities that promote gender equality for age groups between 3 and 12 years old, contributes to providing education professionals not only with personal, social, and technical skills, but also promotes the reflection on attitudes and prejudices that each one carried and could contribute to perpetuating stereotypes. About policies in Portugal, Since 2017, there are the National Strategy for Citizenship Education. It was set up to support children and young people who acquire citizenship skills and knowledge throughout their education, aim to help students develop and participate actively in projects that promote fairer and more inclusive societies within the context of the value of democracy and democratic institutions, the respect and defense for human rights, respect for diversity and gender equality, environmental sustainability, and health education. It creates a mandatory teaching area, citizenship and development, integrated through the curriculum, from early childhood to upper secondary education. There are 70 areas of citizenship education. Gender equality is a mandatory area for all levels of education. Education for gender equality aims to encourage students to get to know the gender equality concept, to promote the rights of women and girls and gender equality at various levels, political, economic, social, and cultural, contributing to the elimination of stereotypes. The intercommunication with other areas are, for example, the approach to issues of difference between sex and gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, stereotypes and prejudices in sexuality area, rights of women and girls to the same opportunities for education, employment, to be seen as equal on human rights, how socially and culturally gender roles are assigned to men, boys, and women, girls, the use of inclusive language, stereotypic use of female, example caring, and male image, example strength. In Portugal, also for the period covering 2018-2030, a national strategy for equality and non-discrimination are being implanted, and education is involved. This national strategy is dedicated to the three main fields: equality between men and women, equality between men and women, violence against women, gender violence and domestic violence, and at least discrimination, the grounds of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender, and sexual characteristics. We have also a school without bullying, school without violence label. The schools must assume itself as a privileged space in the prevention and the fight against all forms of violence. To this end, it is extremely important for schools to define and implement their plan to prevent and combat bullying and cyberbullying. Schools without bullying, schools without violence. So, embodied in the premise of the National Strategy for Citizenship Education and oriented toward the student's profile by the hand of compulsory schooling, it is important to continue to promote in each of schools an environment of well-being, where the collaboration of the entire education community, in particular that of children and young people, to contribute to its transformation. Empathy and respect should breathe in each space, and inclusion will have to be assumed as a reality where prejudice, stereotypes, and hate speech have no place. Presently, all the schools are being invited to request this certification. Possibles of sustainability and scale up this theme. Education for all, respect to be at the heart of UNESCO's mission, makes diversity and complexity important factors to be considered when defining what is intended for students' profile by the end of compulsory school. Gender equality responds to principles, vision, and values advocates in the student profiles on leaving compulsory schooling, a reference document for education in Portugal, allowing the development skills in the areas of interpersonal relationships, critical thinking, and creative thinking, well-being, health, and environment, among others. The escalation of KINDER project will be supported by the initial and continuous training of education professionals in gender equality as a fundamental contribution to deconstructing gender stereotypes and promoting a more equitable and healthy society. The General Directorate of Education is available not only for the dissemination of resources, but also for training support, carrying out short-term training actions online and webinars will allow reaching numerous professionals, including school staff, school headmasters, regardless of their geographic location. So, congratulations for the project and all contributes for gender equality in our schools. Thank you. I talk too fast, so.
Thank you, Mrs. Lopez. I think this was a very illuminating for us, especially us in Croatia. I think you have a great system set in place in the educational system in the context of citizenship, education, and gender equality, and we have a lot to learn from you. This is why we asked Ms. Rada Boric to join us. She is a currently non-active member of parliament, but a member of the Assembly of the City of Zagreb, and actually a chair of the Gender Equality Committee of the City of Zagreb. But more importantly, she is also a fierce woman and a feminist who's been fighting the good fight for many decades. And we've asked her to join us here and to also speak about the importance of projects like KINDER in Europe, but especially in the Croatian context, which is like very, very challenging in this respect, and to give us like a critical reflection on the state of play in Croatia in this area. So, dear Rada, thank you very much for coming once again, and the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. First, absolutely wonderful presentation, and I'm deeply grateful for the work you did with KINDER project. I think I can't thank you more, and I'm looking forward maybe to implement some of the manuals and some of the work you did, of course, including the one that Status M did. As Anna Maria nicely introduced me, I would gladly say that primarily I still myself consider as a feminist activist. By profession, since from 1995, I was one of the co-founder of the Center for Women's Studies in Croatia, which is still, unfortunately, or fortunately maybe nowadays, a civil society organization. And as a linguist, I consider myself a feminist linguist. And I have to say that, of course, we have to be kind of patient. Many classes I did for many students. And finally, in Croatia, I would say we have a gender sensitive language, including how we name, as you know, the languages that have gender, that you have a different words for, let's say, a woman pilot and a pilot. And I think that since language deeply reproduces stereotypes, language can also heal. Everything is in a language, and maybe it's not yet realized. So whoever historically has been writing dictionaries, and if one would check just the definition of woman and men in Croatian dictionary, would know how deeply stereotypes, and even not only stereotypes, but discrimination is rooted. Since so many women spoke so beautifully, not to repeat Aisha, not to repeat Anna Maria gave you a context of a Croatian situation. As we all know that education is not neutral, as we all know that, of course, then curriculums are not neutral, and even what maybe we didn't mention, but I think Isabel now said, although even women are now guilty since we have a feminization in education, always it has been, but it has been never more. Even we have that women are better students and then better teachers, still like it seems that we have to have a burden of why we do not have more gender equality in our society. What I think everybody said, we need more I would say feminist pedagogy or feminist, everybody's sensitive literacy or a gender sensitive, gender transformative. It's fine. This is what we definitely need. We would need definitely more gender sensitive surroundings in which we work. But the most, and this is what we have to fight. And this is why also I think I left the field of activism and joined a small left green party. And we had a success that I even entered parliament. We need political will that the changes would happen. And you cannot have a political will if you have a right-wing government that in fact is doing from the 90s repatriarchalization of the society, which means women back to bedroom, give more children, when you have everyday threats in Croatia from right-wing parties to ban the right to sexual, women's sexual and reproductive rights. So, you know, we have every day almost to struggle that we wouldn't get a ban on abortion. So in all this kind of context, we have to really fight for the education that would be, I would say, mainstreamed. Because what you have now, the education that is done not only by Center for Women's Studies or by Status M, but by other women's groups or other civil society groups, is that they have to smuggle their programs into official programs. We are not, unfortunately, I would have to learn a lot of Isabel, how they managed already in 2017 to get citizens education. We are fighting already 30 years to get citizens education, but as you well know, the ruling parties are not willing that their citizens would be more educated, that they would understand gender equality or understand democracy as a whole. They are happy that citizens are less educated and that they vote for them till eternity. So I think what we have to really do when we say that we have to have a focus on gender and that we have to have focus on children, but you cannot have focus on children if you do not have gender educated teachers, preschool teachers especially, and then of course primary school and then high school teachers. And when also you have, I wouldn't say resistance of parents, as we heard from Anna Maria, there was some pretending to be parents and they belong to a different right-wing groups. It is also that the parents are not aware of the stereotypes that are deeply rooted in our society, in our language and so forth. And I think what we have to also start working more extensively with the stakeholders, with the politicians, and we have to generally, and now I'll tell that it wouldn't sound also pessimistic, you have to have a political will to do it, as we finally have in the city of Zagreb. City of Zagreb is the capital after 20 years of having, I would say, not only right-wing politics in the city, but we have a corruptive government and we had a corruptive mayor who ended up in many corruptive cases. But what we have now, a small left-green coalition won the city of Zagreb in 2001 and in summer, and already September, as the city of Zagreb, we joined one European project which was called Equality in, Stereotypes Out. And it also gave education to 600 teachers from 4 cities in Zagreb. So it's not only that Zagreb wants to do a change, it has to be a synergy among other mayors, and some cities have a different type of political options, and also with the neighboring Serbia. Just to tell you the success of let's say, our work on gender equality in language, that in Croatia, compared to Serbia and Bosnia, and we share almost the same language, they do not use gender sensitive language as we do now officially. In Croatia, I would say language is mainstream. You would have on TV programs that women directors are put in a female gender, that you have a women doctors, or just doctors in a female gender, pilots and so forth. So with the small steps that were done already by enormous work of civil society organizations. And no wonder what Anna Maria told you, that the backlash that we have, a general backlash. I tried a little bit to count when Aisha was talking. She, I think, mentioned a word gender maybe 30 times. I think anytime anyone from us, and it started with the Istanbul Convention and ratification of Istanbul Convention, the ruling party split in two just because the ruling party wanted to be a good disciple and a good student to European Union, wanted to pass it. You can't believe that a word gender makes such a trouble, as what Anna Maria said, everybody connects it, and this is also invented wrongly, this gender ideology that we promote. There has been such a, not stereotypes, but idiotic hatred type of pictures that if we sign Istanbul Convention, there would be bearded men in long dresses entering women bathrooms. And of course, this didn't happen. So when you have such a rhetorics, when even a word gender, whenever in a city, since I'm running a gender equality committee, whenever I have a document that wants to promote gender equality, and I stand up in our assembly and I speak, there is always several right-wing representatives of their party that would start questioning, the gender thing. And you know what? I decided every time I speak, and I would individually invite them if they want, that I give them a short course on gender. So, but however I joke with them, I think that we should really start working with those who have a power to create our curriculums. And it's not that we have to smuggle them in a very difficult ways, that we get an extra time that you know how curriculums in schools are crowded, I would say, with many times with the content that it's not needed. But of course, then if you want to come with any type of other extra curriculum programs, it's very difficult to enter school, and it's very difficult to enter kindergarten. So that would be the task in Croatia. Maybe situation is better, and I now have heard that it is in Portugal obligatory and mandatory, and I'm really very happy to hear it. At least I would now, as an argument, always use this, that this is mandatory in Portugal, and this is how also we can support each other's to share good practices, and not only worrying one. But I think that definitely we are on the right path all together, and bringing these wonderful tools as you did, either they are little videos, because I think the teachers are open to learn and to have this long time learning, but it's just that we always need materials that would be equivalent to their knowledge, and then especially to children's knowledge. And to end up, I always remember, and I recommend, if you have free time, to read Virginia Woolf's Three Guineas. And when you remember, it was written in 1938, so it's not even 100 years ago, as women, as a, I would say, as a conscious gender altogether, or as a citizens of Europe. I think when we think this, in 1938, she couldn't enter the university. She could go on a back door. And she imagined what type of education we should have. And she said something beautifully, that the education should always be adventurous, and that we shouldn't read from the books that are on the shelves and are covered with dust. And that as a teacher, we also have to, every time, to dispower ourselves, every time to question what we do. And I think that, and of course, to promote education of empathy. And this is what we heard today, that this is also one of the reasons why we do it, not only to break gender stereotypes, which really starts, as somebody said, even before preschooling, even before kids were born. I used to teach at University of Helsinki, and they had a wonderful research that they have dressed a little boy in pink, you know how this is stereotypical, how you dress boys and girls, and the girl in a blue. And they were on the street, and people were coming and seeing a little baby in a blue, thinking it was a boy, and it was a girl by sex. So they were telling, oh, how strong, look these muscles. And seeing, you know, the boy in pink, they would say, oh, how beautiful, how sweet little girl. So we have even preconditioned all these stereotypes that we have to change. But I definitely want to be positive. So it seems that in the city of Zagreb, we just started also with, I would say it's not mandatory, but we started with citizens education in 36 schools, primary schools and high schools. And even after a year, the students from a high school presented us in assembly the projects they did. They were smart. They kept to 5 minutes. Most probably I took over my 10 already. They kept to 5 minutes. They were very well prepared, and they did wonderful projects. Among them were those to promote gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rada. I really appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your optimism also, and highlighting the progress. Although we do live in a challenging context and things are potentially even going to get worse, I do acknowledge that also, like, progress is made, and we have high hopes for things in the city of Zagreb. So we're depending on you. I would like to continue with the address of Mr. Predrag Matic. He is a Croatian representative in the European Parliament. But he's also a feminist ally, and he is working hard to push feminist agenda in the European Parliament. He was particularly instrumental in the topics of sexual and reproductive health and rights of women in the EU. Unfortunately, he cannot be here with us today, but he pre-recorded like a short video that we can now play, and it's also an expression of his support for what we are doing here. So Tiago, if you can just play. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the organizers for this opportunity to share my thoughts and ideas at this conference, the final event of the KINDER project. Starting from a young age with notions like girls should play with dolls and boys should play with trucks. In adolescence, with girls should be well behaved, boys are aggressive, or adulthood with there is something wrong with a woman who doesn't want children. Gender stereotypes are present in all areas of life. It is important to challenge them to create a more inclusive society. This project raised awareness for the fight against gender stereotypes through educational materials for children. Today's conference serves as a platform to celebrate the success of the project, but also discuss the backlash experienced in the Croatian context. As we conclude this conference, let us not confine that learnings and inspirations to the walls of this conference center. Instead, let us carry them forward into our respective fields, workplaces and communities. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you all a successful and fulfilling conference.
much for these words. It's good to know that we have also allies at European level. That's what scaling up means. And we also have a short video from Portuguese member of the European Parliament, Maria Manuel Leitão Marques. In fact, she was a professor here in Coimbra, a researcher in SES 20 years ago, and she's a Portuguese politician now of the Socialist Party, and she has been serving as a member of the European Parliament since 2019. She previously served as Minister of the Presidency and of Administrative Modernization in the Cabinet of Prime Minister António Costa since November 2015. She's a feminist, and she is a very close ally to the work that we do, especially the one focusing on care and transforming harmful masculinities and preventing gender-based violence. So let's end this conference with the words of Maria Manuel. And after Maria Manuel Leitão Marques, I'll just say a few words and we'll take a group picture as usual, okay? Tiago, please.
Thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this project with this small contribution special to Tatiana Moura. Let's talk a little bit about care. It is estimated that almost 7.7 million women are outside of the labour market in the European Union due to their care responsibilities compared to just 500,000 men. This has huge consequences on other inequalities, such as the pay and the pension gap. In Europe, women's pensions are on average 30% lower than those of men, in part because they spend less time active in the labour market. This inequality in the distribution of care responsibility happens, in part, because we still see women as those who should be responsible for caring for children and the elderly people. In other words, because we still have stereotypes about whose role it is to care for others. On the other hand, women are underrepresented in technological jobs, for instance, which are better paid, and that will be ever more important in the near future. In part, this is due to the way girls see these kind of jobs as relations with a machine without any social dimension, which is not true, but it's the way they see. This is why in Portugal we have a very successful project named Engineers for One Day, which aims precisely to promote amongst girls careers in science and technology. This project has reached more than 12,000 young people since 2017. I think we need to develop a similar project in the area of care that could be named Carers for One Day, also in order to attract more boys into the care sector. Beliefs and stereotypes are learned very early, and it's very difficult to challenge them in later stages of life. First, because people have been living with them and acting accordingly for a long time. And second, because some of these stereotypes are not even conscious. People don't even know they have them. Therefore, our work needs to start as early as possible. And this is why projects such as KINDER are so important. Early childhood education can have a fundamental role in tackling harmful stereotypes as soon as they start being learned. However, this is not an easy task. I know very well. First, we need interventions that are simple and easy to implement. As teachers and other educational professionals have very limited resources and very limited time. And second, any project that aims to be scaled up needs to be efficient in a different context. For example, in different countries, there is significant variation in terms of the structure of the education system and the relevant stakeholders involved. Adding to this, the stereotypes that are most predominant in a given country might vary. Therefore, in order to be impactful, the focus of an intervention may also need to be adjusted to different realities. This is why it's so important that KINDER focus on creating easy-to-use outputs, such as an educational curriculum. Moreover, it was also important that you investing on training teachers and other professionals, and that you explored how the national programs needed to be adapted in different member states of the European Union. Let me tell you a little about what is done at the European Union level, where we often hear that we cannot do a lot in the field of education because the European Union only has a supporting competence in education matters. However, there are some things that we can do besides passing laws. For example, we can provide financial support, as was the case for KINDER. We can explore innovative educational methodologies through pilot projects. And of course, we can promote the sharing of best practices among member states. Moreover, we need to be better at scaling up projects once they finish. We must assure appropriate funding to follow up on interventions that are proven to work. Having said this, I want to finish by congratulating you and by thanking you for your work on such relevant topic, and again for the invitation. All the best for all of you.
So now we know that at least we have some allies and partners at European level, and that they're willing to scale these projects up and to give us support. It's important at the national level, it's important at the European level, and it's important, as the Deputy Maria Manuel said, to be able to adapt to different contexts and to different situations, because the political situation now might change in 6 months. We know that, we learned that from the last decades. So I just want to finish this final conference saying that, again, this is just the beginning, because now we have everything ready to start working. Starting at the age of 3, working with education professionals, working with other groups, with education staff. And we're here as a consortium to continue to implement our projects and our work. I'd like to ask my colleagues if they want to say something. We have 1 minute. So that's it. It's just, thank you very much for those who are on YouTube watching us this early time in the morning. We already received some feedback by messages, and we'll stay here. Everything is online, and as I mentioned in my presentation, is open access. And if you have other questions, just send us an email. Our contacts are on the Kinder website. And that's it. I mean, I have no words to thank all the consortia and all the people who attended today, and to all those who support the work that we keep doing in these 3 countries and 4 countries now with Aisha, and all over Europe. Thank you so much. Hope to see you all soon, face to face. We need face-to-face meeting instead of these virtual webinars. Thank you so much and take care.
Não, espera.